The rejection of Jesus at Nazareth. He came to his hometown and began to teach the people in their synagogue, so that they were astounded and said, "Where did this man get this wisdom and these deeds of power? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all this?" And they took offence at him. But Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honour except in their own country and in their own house." And he did not do many deeds of power there because of their unbelief. One of the interesting things in having 4 Gospels, and 3 of those being quite similar to one another, is in noticing how some events in Jesus' life differ between them. Now, I must confess that until this week I was more familiar with the version of this episode of Jesus' life from the Gospel of Mark. And it was because of that that I particularly noticed the difference between the passages this week. You see, in Mark's Gospel, Jesus was recorded as being unable to perform miracles because of the lack of faith in the people around him. It was more a sense of he could not do it. Now, that's quite a different emphasis to what Matthew's Gospel records, what we've just heard, where the emphasis seems to be that Jesus would not do great deeds because of the lack of faith in the people present around him. So it was a could not versus a would not argument. Now, I've spent a bit of time this week mulling the impact of the impact of that could not, would not debate. And to be frank, it didn't bring me to a particularly comfortable place either way round. The former suggests that Jesus was weak. The latter suggests that Jesus was being fickle, perhaps even craven. Now, it's not the first time I've stumbled into this sort of dilemma, and as I know that Jesus is neither weak nor fickle, I figured out that must be a flaw in my thinking, that my way of thinking the situation through was clearly wrong. And so, thinking about it a little more, I asked myself, what if these accounts and this story are not so much about Jesus, but about the crowd? Now, whichever way you read it, whichever account you read, the crowd are a constant. In all 3 Gospels, they simply fail to see Jesus for whom and what he is. He is, in their eyes, the carpenter's boy who they remember growing up. They cannot see that the man standing before them has changed from the boy that they remember. They can only see Jesus, in other words, in his humanity. In fact, they're so blinded by what they see in the familiar that they cannot see the divine Jesus at all. They are blind to him. And then I saw the point, for I fear that we all too often fall into the same trap. I cannot help but wonder at the times when, living in our own little bubbles, absorbed by the details of the world immediately around us, there is the possibility that we too fail to see the divine Jesus. If you believe, as I do, that God's way of working in the world is through that world, then we must always be ready to see the God Jesus in the people that we meet. Not only in those extraordinary meetings, those encounters where we suddenly and palpably become aware of the living God among us, but also in the humdrum, the everyday, the familiar. If we look upon our families, our friends, the people we know from church, the people from work, the people we see down the supermarket, wherever really, week in, week out, and we look upon them as the people of Nazareth looked upon Jesus, then we will make the same mistakes that they did. If we do that, we will just see human Joe, human Susan, human Freddie. We'll miss the spark of the divine within them. And if Joe or Susan or Freddie happen to be one of the people that you're presently socially isolated with, a close member of your family perhaps, when you're stuck together 24 hours a day, it is all the easier to miss the glimmer of the Christ that can be found within them too. And that's the challenge for today. To be different from the Nazarene crowd and find those elusive glimpses of God in the people around us, in the world immediately around us. It's not easy, but it is possible. So God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you and the glimpses of Christ within you when we next meet again.